have not seen this with any other reviews on the Nutrimill Impact grain mill. This is a new mill on the market. I really hope that no one else has marble or very porous countertops when they first turn this on. It has left greasy, black, sooty stains all over my countertops, all over the bottom of the mill, and I have been left searching all over the house for a degreaser that will work to clean my countertops. I'm assuming that this is just normal for a new machine the first time or two that is turned on. Time will tell. We shall see if we end up with this sticky mess every time we turn it on. That could be a deal breaker. After a handful of uses, I determined that the greasy issue with the Nutrimill Impact is not a deal breaker. Instead, I'm going to share with you 3 reasons I returned it, and I hope it gives you some really great insight into the Nutrimill Impact, how it functions, who it might be best for, and why I ultimately decided to upgrade to the Nutrimill Harvest mill. I am new on YouTube, so this is not sponsored at all. Nutrimill is absolutely amazing, and I've had great experience with their customer service. I paid for the Harvest and the Impact mills with my own money. They did not send me mills, and this is not sponsored. Just a completely honest, open review, and I hope you get a lot out of it, because having used both of them, there are a lot of things I wish I would have known beforehand. So, without further ado, here are 3 reasons I returned the Nutrimill Impact. Number 1, the sound. I'm really happy that I waited to do this video until having used the Harvest a few times, because I can give an honest comparison between the two. I would actually say the Impact has volume that seems to be twice as much as the Harvest mill. The Impact mill is an Impact style grain mill, so it has steel milling head inside of it. This is a stone grain mill here. So as far as volume goes, I find the Harvest to be much, much quieter. Don't get me wrong, it is still pretty loud, but my 1-year-old can actually sleep through his nap if I turn this on and it doesn't disturb him. For any of the moms out there, the Impact mill will probably wake up your kids. It does sound like an airplane taking off, in my opinion. When it was on, it did wake up my youngest, and then my toddler daughter and we wanted to hide in the bedroom while it was on because it was so incredibly loud. And the pitch was just, it's very high pitch. This has much of a lower, almost coffee grinder kind of sound to it, is how I would describe the sound of the Nutrimill Harvest. Much prefer the sound of the Nutrimill Harvest. The second reason I returned the Nutrimill Impact grain mill is the size and I would say the orientation of how it is set up. Because it is an Impact mill with a canister, the idea there is that the flour stays more contained. I actually don't really agree with the sentiment that it's cleaner. I'll get into that in point number 3. I am not quite sure if the intention behind the design was that the mill would sit with the canister forward on your counter and then the motor with hopper in the back, or if it's supposed to be sideways, sort of like the Wonder Mill. The knob to actually turn it on is on the back. The orientation of that was just not for me. Having to either put the mill sideways so you can easily see the knob and know what number on the dial you're turning it to, or having it awkwardly needing to get pushed back under a counter. In any case, it just didn't seem like the most functional option for how I use my kitchen. Now, I don't know exact dimensions, but realistically, I would say that the Harvest probably takes about half the footprint on your countertop as the Nutrimill Impact mill. So if that's something that really matters to you and countertop space is at a premium, it's a big consideration. The last reason I returned the Nutrimill Impact was cleaning all of the pieces in the canister. So typically the idea behind having a canister for your flour and a contained mill like that would be that there is less flour dust in the air. The Harvest, I would say, does get some flour dust in the air of your kitchen. I personally don't mind that. And I have found it actually much, much easier to just mill straight into the bowl with the Harvest. I was going to have that bowl dirty anyways if I'm making a recipe. So to me, it seems like a much better option. Inside the canister on the Impact mill, the lid has a clear piece that needs to get twisted out. And then there's also a little foam, what they call a filter, on top of the canister lid. All of those pieces need to be taken apart, washed, and completely dry before you can mill flour again. Now, if you have done a bunch of baking and you know that your mill is going to have some downtime for the next few days, maybe that's not a big deal to you. But if you are like me and you want to have a lot of flexibility, make the most of your time in your kitchen, that might become an inconvenience. Personally, I don't want more pieces of things to have to hand wash in my kitchen. I should make one more note about the cleaning and the orientation of the mill. It is not possible to operate this with one hand. The suction, the seal to keep the canister closed is very airtight. So when you need two hands to try to take it off, one to hold here and another to hold on this little tiny tab. And then if you're not very slow and steady with it, it can just easily pop off, and then you end up with a flour mess all over, which kind of defeats the purpose of it all being enclosed like that. I would much rather have the flour fall out of the mill into my own bowl. If you intend to store it in a cabinet, make sure that you take some measurements before you order it. The canister and the actual motor of the mill can be separated to store. They will not easily stack though. I would not count on stacking the canister on top of the mill. It is not really intended to be stored that way. The hopper, interestingly, is supposed to be stored inside the canister with the canister lid on. Why they did not put a lid on the hopper, I don't know. I would much, much, much prefer to have a lid on the hopper so though no dust and debris can get into it, especially if you're going to be storing it on your kitchen countertop. That being said, to me, it feels like more of a long-term storage option to remove the hopper, put that inside the canister with the lid on, and then the power cord also is supposed to be stored in there. You could maybe leave it attached if you have space, again, in a cabinet for the cord to stick out the back of the mill. And then also the cleanliness of it. If you have any flour on the mill where the canister actually connects to the mill, that is definitely going to be loosened and end up all over your cabinets. This review would not be complete if I did not mention the amazing customer service at Nutrimill. I was thoroughly impressed. One of the best customer service experiences I've had with a company in a very, very long time. I made a few phone calls to Nutrimill in deciding whether or not I was going to keep the Impact. And then also after getting the Harvest, I shared with them what kind of baking I do and what my routine is, what my concerns were as far as noise and the function of the mills. And they were incredibly helpful to walk me through some of the options. Ultimately, I decided that the Harvest was going to be a better option for our family. I have been so incredibly happy with it the last few days. I can't say enough good things about Nutrimill and the Harvest. Though I started this video mentioning the grease mess from the first few uses on the Impact Mill that did eventually subside, I called the customer service number about it and they said that that was totally normal. I did recommend that they should add some kind of warning in the package and the instructions, letting people know that that is a normal thing. You should not be concerned. And also, you might want to put your mill on some kind of cardboard, paper, put something under it so you can protect your countertops. The Impact is an incredible, incredible mill for a beginner or someone just getting started. I don't think at the time of shooting this video, you can beat the price point for the quality of the product of the flour that you're going to get out of that mill. I was very impressed with the consistency, the fineness of the flour. It's definitely not store-bought because when you're milling at home, you truly do get 100% whole grain flour. At the store, whole grain is typically basically turned into all-purpose with a little bran backed in. So you're not actually getting the full wheat berry in that flour. But at home with the Impact Mill, you are going to get a fantastic flour, even a fine pastry flour or bread flour that you can use for all of your baking needs. Definitely stay tuned for another video. I am going to put the Nutrimill Harvest and the Impact Mill head to head for a speed test, grinding 500 grams of bread flour. I am a sourdough baker, so stay tuned for content like that. Please tap the link below. I'll see you in the next one.